Okay, this week we are discussing diversity and poverty, two kind of huge topics, but really we're still looking at them through this lens of differentiating our instruction. So, our learning target for the week is I can define key vocabulary related to diversity. So, if we think about, let's just start with diversity. When you hear that word, what do you think of? Usually the same things pop into people's minds. Um, Most people will immediately say race, but there actually are various types of diversity. These are the main types of diversity addressed in general, and not just education, in any field. So it's not just race, it's culture, religion, age, sex or gender, sexual orientation, and then, of course, disability. So when we think of diverse needs, these are all of the things that we're thinking about in terms of diverse needs. Kind of can feel overwhelming, but it's important to remember it's not just race or it's not just disability. It's kind of all of these things. So when we think about poverty in particular, when you hear the word poverty, what do you think of? I encourage you to pause the video for a minute and really think about what are the things that come to mind when you hear the word poverty. Very often stereotypes will come to people's minds, and specifically in thinking about poverty as it pertains to education. But that's where understanding bias comes in. So if you look at these two eggs, they look very different, right? You have a white egg and a brown egg. You might see them and think they're two completely different kinds of eggs, right? Because on the outside, they're very different. They're not only different colors, the brown one looks like it could be speckled. They're the same size, but they look different, right? Well, when you crack them open, they're the same, right? Still an egg inside. So it's kind of the same idea of bias, remembering that just because things look different does not mean that they're actually any different on the inside, right? So when we think about bias, we all have biases. No one is completely neutral. As hard as we may try, it's just impossible to be completely neutral. We all have preferences or aversions of different people for various reasons. It could be prior experiences, prior negative experiences. It could be things instilled, in us from our parents. It could be a perception that was, that you got from some kind of media. Everybody gets these preferences or aversions from different places, but that's what causes our bias. So implicit bias is when we have attitudes toward people, or we associate stereotypes with certain groups of people without actually being aware that we do. And this happens probably more often than not. So this is a link in the PowerPoint or in the slides that brings you to Project Implicit, which is a whole list of, oh, it looks different. Here we go. Implicit bias tests. So you can go in and take the test to see where your biases lie. I strongly encourage you to do that because it is eye-opening sometimes. As much as you might think, I don't have any biases, or I don't have biases towards these group of people, you might have other ones you don't realize that you have. So I definitely encourage you to take that. It's very eye-opening. And it's great to then reflect on, because whatever your biases are, they impact how you interact with students. And you want to make sure that you are not showing preference to some over others, right? We also need to talk about cultural competence. This is kind of one of those buzzwords, phrases that are going around, but cultural competence is something that it has to develop over time. And that's okay. Like that's what's supposed to happen. Nobody is supposed to learn it and have it right away. Each individual person has their own cultural competence, but also a school or a district culture has cultural competence. It's things that are communicated through language, policies, expectations, how behaviors are managed, and so much more. So in order to grow your cultural competence, you have to first self-assessed. You have to know where you are right now, right? So then it's important to keep coming back to the continuum of cultural competence or proficiency to keep continuing to learn. So this right here is the cultural competence continuum or cultural proficiency continuum. So it starts at cultural destructiveness and it ends at cultural proficiency. And so we should always be striving for that cultural proficiency, but with the understanding that we're never going to be perfect and this isn't linear. We might grow, we might regress because of different experiences that we have. So I encourage you to read. The top line is like the definition of each phase in the continuum. The line below is language that you might use if you're at that phase in the continuum. So that might kind of help you figure out where you might fall. But I strongly encourage you to take a look at this and really reflect to figure out where you are, because then that's going to help you figure out where you need to grow. Always with the mindset that you're striving for cultural proficiency. We want to make sure that we are equitably addressing all cultures, all students in our classrooms, because we want every single one of them to have an equal opportunity to learn. And equal is not the same. Not all students need the same. So that's a lot of things to unpack in just a few minutes. So like I said, I would bookmark this continuum and come back to it periodically to see if and how you've grown over time. So changing gears here, towards the end of the semester, you're going to have an instructional technology presentation assignment. I'm putting this on your radar now because you need to sign up. So for this assignment, you're going to choose an instructional technology resource. You're going to research the resource, then prepare a 10 to 15 minute presentation that you're going to share with your peers. So the presentation that has to include what the tool is, how it works, what its advantages and disadvantages are, how it allows you to differentiate your instruction, and how it aligns with the New York State Next Generation Standards. So you can record with whatever you'd like, as long as you're just submitting the one file. But what I want you to do is sign up here for your resource. I want everybody to have a different one. I really challenge you not to choose something that you're very familiar with. Choose something that's worth doing the research. Choose something that you want to learn more about, or it could be something you're familiar with, but you want to dig in further in terms of how it will allow you to differentiate your instruction for your students with disabilities, your ELLs, your gifted and talented students. So make sure you sign up for that this week. Okay, so I encourage you to revisit this learning target after you watch the video and do all of your readings. There are many vocabulary words related to diversity. Some of them are right in that cultural competence continuum. So it's important to be familiar with all of them because that's kind of the language that we speak in current classrooms. Let me know if you have any questions.